Hey, DG fam. So I'm going to send Mariam this live. Thank you for joining us. Hello, hello. So Mariam should be joining any minute now. Same introduction. So this is our Amplify Black Voices series where we hold the mic to Black members of Arab communities. The last person we had on here was Michael Williams. He was a Fortson alumni and just spoke to his experience being Black in Dearborn. And today we have the pleasure of speaking to Mariam Doudi, who went to Crestwood High School, graduated from University of Michigan Ross, which is actually where I met her. And she's a Black Arab and Muslim who is going to speak to her experiences being Black and being Arab. So we'll just wait for her to join. Hello, everyone that's joined. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. So while we wait for her to join, I'll kind of go over some of the things that we've been doing that you should check out if you haven't seen them yet. So on our page, if you scroll over to IGTV, you'll be able to see not just the old IG lives that we've done. We did one last Friday. We'll be doing these. We have a couple more scheduled next week. But we are also summarizing the book, The New Jim Crow. I have it right here. So this is the book that we've been summarizing. And so we've only read chapter 1 so far, the introduction in chapter 1. And this Tuesday, actually, we have a virtual book club to cover chapters 2 and 3. So it's not too late to join at all. The book is pretty dense, so we're going to move through it slowly. But we would love to have people join that conversation. I wonder if she's having trouble. I just got off the phone with her, but send it to her again. Okay. So for those of us who are here, while we are waiting for Mariam to join, why don't you just go ahead and send any questions in here that you would want me to ask her? I think Mariam, I know that I see that you're on here. Click request to join IG live video. Yes, there we go. So we added her in. If you all have any questions that you would like for me to add to talk to Mariam, definitely add them in the chat and I'll try my best to get to them. Hey,
Hey, beautiful.
I miss your face.
I miss yours.
Long time no see. Not long time no talk, but definitely long time no see.
Definitely, definitely.
So I just kind of gave people the spiel while we were getting settled. So they know who you are. This is Mariam Doudi. So as I mentioned, she is a recent alumna of Michigan Ross. She went to Crestwood schools in Dearborn, Dearborn Heights, same thing really. And she is a avid traveler and a lover of bubble tea. So without further ado, so Mariam, by the way, I do want to give a shameless plug on Mariam. Mariam was on our show during, I think, the first season. So you should either the first or second. Yasmin might correct me, but her episode was amazing. She was just awesome. We actually featured her episode during our first mini like secret watch party at the U of M Ann Arbor, and the students loved seeing it. So she's been an original Dearborn girl. Yes, first season. So Mariam, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself while also telling us a little bit about your experiences growing up in Dearborn.
So as Rima said, I recently graduated from U of M. Okay, I hate doing these, but I'm 22. I work at Ford. I have a big family, a family of 5. So my dad is from Sudan. My mom is from Tanzania, and she's Omani as well. She also got a little bit of Southeast Asian in her. So my mom actually looks more Southeast Asian and like Arab, depending on what she wears. But yeah, was born in Toronto, moved to Dearborn when I was like 3. So I did all my schooling in like Michigan, like Dearborn, Dearborn Heights. moved to the Heights when I was like 7th grade. So kind of just started. I was always in the community, like in the Arab community.
Right.
What do you want me to tell you, I guess?
So I know that when you and I spoke, something that I thought was interesting, and that I'd hope you could expand on is you said that you had a very different experience than your younger siblings growing up in Dearborn. And so I'd love for you to speak to what made your experience so different than theirs.
Yeah, so I feel like with me, I definitely am more in tune with the Arab side. And I think it's because I had to be. So I had to basically emphasize that and basically get rid of my blackness, even though I knew like people were gonna still see the color of my skin, right?
Right.
It wasn't something that like being black, like it's kind of just like this cloud over you. Like you're always conscious of it, and everything that you do. And so for me, like it started with, realizing I'm black because little girls on the like playground are calling me Pepsi when I'm 5.
Wow.
Not no, like there was no black people in that community either. I grew up first in the South End before moving to like more central Dearborn. And I remember when my cousin first moved into the town, she was like the only other black girl. So like I literally followed her around the playground and everything. And then so I went to Salina. Like my siblings didn't go to Salina though. I think one of them might have went for like preschool, but that was basically it. Then I went to Gear Park. Still, there was maybe like one black girl. Maybe there was like 2 or 3 people who were like my neighbors, but I think they still weren't like long-term friends. People I could make like who could make an impact in my life, especially that young. Um, then going to like high school Crestwood, there just wasn't a lot of black people, and I was always like in the advanced classes, like AP and whatever, and like everybody who was in there were like mostly Arabs, and so I didn't have like a black friend who I could go to and learn more about the culture, like learn more about that side, right? The side that I had suppressed. Because I remember like even in elementary school, like I knew Swahili. Like my mom in Tanzania, they speak Swahili. And even though mom's Almani, like she never learned Arabic, like except for the Quran, like until she married my dad and she had to like speak it. Because like unless you went to Alman and you were like doing business there or doing something there, you didn't really need to know the language. And so we knew Swahili from going back home, and then I didn't want to like know it anymore when I was in elementary school because I didn't want my mom to speak to us, and we're speaking this like foreign language
Wow.
that's not Arabic and be seen as different. And I think with my siblings, because they kind of like grew up, like I think both of my younger siblings, they started school in the Heights. My sister, like she's 2 years younger than me. I think more black people started coming into the community later on, and my sister did have this one black friend who was like basically her little guardian angel. She was like 6 feet tall. My sister's like 5 feet. So if anything, she would like protect her or whatever, but she also introduced her to like black customs and cultures and gave her black friends. I didn't have any of that until college. I didn't know what box braids were. Like I didn't know what any of that stuff is. Now my sister wears braids, but I didn't know what they were. Or understand like the struggles, and I didn't have anybody to teach me, I think. And I think it was definitely very valuable when I was in college to have these people, have a more diverse group of friends and really learn more and open my eye and like start to learn more about myself. Because there was a part of myself that I couldn't learn about, right? So even like growing up, like you don't realize this until you start, like the conversation starts to come up, and then you're like, hold up, there was this and that. And there's things where like I basically erased my blackness and didn't learn how to love it.
Wow.
And so that's an issue now, like when you're like an adult and you're like starting to come to terms with all this stuff. I was on another call like 2 days ago, and somebody said something about like just like talking about like some like hate, self-hate and stuff. And it reminded me too, like she said something about how like her dad would tell her to squeeze her nose as a child. And I remember with my little sister, there'd be when she was born, there was just like, gotta squeeze her nose, like you don't want it to be too wide or something like that. And it's these like little like beauty standards that are coming in from when you're young. And so you really start to learn that like the black features are ugly, things like that. And it's little comments, like even my dad, like I think he has self-loathing for himself, right? Because like even within the Sudanese community, there is that hierarchy of colorism, right? So even though he's an Afro-Arab, like the ones who look more Arab are what's it called? Being prejudiced and racist towards those who don't.
Wow.
So I think he also carries those trauma. So there'll be things where like if I'm wearing all black, he'll be like, I can't see you. And it's like, I know damn well you can see me. Stop playing these games with me, you know? And it's not okay, like, you know, and there's things where like even though he has African American friends, he doesn't understand like their traumas. and stuff. And so sometimes he'll say things where I'm just like, that's not okay.
Mm.
Or he'll make comments, or like the way my sister dresses, like the braids, like was an issue in the beginning. And I was like, you have an issue with this because it's African American culture, perpetrating African American culture. Even though braids are totally normal in all Black culture and things like that. And so I'm always like checking him if he says something wrong, like always checking him, making sure that he knows his privilege. And I think it comes from a place where he's like, okay, I've been discriminated against for things like this. Even now, like when I was in business school, do you think like, oh, I'm in Ross, like I know I'm gonna get these great opportunities and I'm gonna be like super happy about it. But no, the Blackness comes back to play. And where my dad's like, okay, don't go into this field because you're Black. Like, don't go into this. Like, don't do that.
Wow.
Oh, you won't get a job because you're Black. Like, my sister, like, alhamdulillah, like, she's, like, not really paying attention to it, my younger one. And she's in Ross now, too. And, like, alhamdulillah, like, she got an internship with McKinsey. Like, she's going to do, like, alhamdulillah, go great places. But she's having these, like, things where she didn't have to deal with what I had to deal with, kind of. Like, being the first child, the oldest, you're kind of, like, trial and error. But it was always like, I remember I worked my butt off in high school. I remember I always just wanted the best. Like when I figured I was going to go to business school, I wanted to go like top business schools.
Right.
And remember getting in to Ross is a pre-admit, and there was only 170 of us
right.
who were pre-admits. I think like maybe 5 of us were Black, like 5%. But I remember one of my friends basically telling me that I got in because I was Black. Only because of that. And it was just like so upsetting because I knew I put in hard work. I knew I was doing all the extracurriculars. I knew I was doing what I needed to do. But I think it was like filled by jealousy, like that he didn't get in or something, and then he wants to put it on my thing. And on my skin. Because I remember he even said like, oh, if I was Black, like I would have gotten into like Harvard and stuff.
Right.
And that's not how it works. Like these schools don't accept people just because you're skin.
Right.
They're not gonna be like, okay, our diversity quota, let's take any Black person. Like, no, it doesn't go like that. These people actually do deserve their spots and they work really hard and you don't know their stories. But that kind of stuck with me though. Like being in Ross, like it was predominantly white. A lot of like rich kids from like the East Coast and stuff like that.
Right.
West Coast, like, you know, like private school kids whose parents are all in business, like most of them, like they're on boards, they're on this. And we're coming from this like little town in Dearborn. And just hearing like people tell me like having my friend tell me the Blackness thing, and then my dad being worried about me going to certain fields because being woman and Black, you start to doubt yourself. And I think that's what I definitely had imposter syndrome when I was in Ross.
What kinds of
like
fields,
that's one
I'm just curious, and I want you to keep going. What kinds of fields was your dad discouraging you from, and what was the rationale?
So it'd be like consulting, right? So you'd be like, people don't want to be client facing with Black people.
Wow.
Right? Or you're a woman and he's worried that like they're gonna want some type of maybe sexual favors or something for you to go up. Even like finance, like banking. Like I wanted to do investment banking at one point. And it's like for me, I'm just like, no, but the times are slightly changing from at least when you were applying for jobs. And like yes, they do have like some type of diversity recruitment and stuff, and they're like trying to recognize.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew these are hard fields to get into, and you have to be, but it's all about your mindset. And I wish if my dad had been like my cheerleader in the back, I feel like that would be like pushing me more, right? You're more resilient about it. Like even to this day, like I'm just not letting that stuff get to me now because I'm like, okay, like inshallah in the future, you're gonna be this like executive at a firm, you're gonna be killing it, you're gonna do what you want.
Right.
But like in college, that wasn't my thought process. It was just like, okay, wait, but I want to go into this, and my dad's telling me no, and he's nagging, and I want to go into this, but he's telling me no, and like just being really confused, and not really being able to do what I wanted.
Right. Are you the first daughter?
Yeah, I'm the oldest child.
You're the oldest child, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I
the first daughter.
Whether you're like, even if you're not the oldest child, if you're the oldest daughter, it's just a whole nother experience with like Muslim dads, Arab dads. Like it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely is. It's like an experience, especially because you're expected to be the caregivers of your siblings. So if they ever do something stupid, it's like, why didn't you talk them out of it?
And they kind of set the stage for how your siblings, like they use you as the example for how things are going to be, and it ends up being sometimes easier on our younger siblings. I wanted to ask you something. So your dad, is your dad perceived as a Black American, like to most people? Like, do
I
people?
think I think at first glance, yes.
So
Yes.
so it's interesting that you said, so your dad, obviously you all are in America, you're perceived as Black. There's not really that difference between being all the time being African or being Black American. But from what I know, there still is this difference in their minds of like, they're Black, we're different, we're Sudanese, or we're, Nigerian, or whatever it is that the difference is in a lot of like Black immigrants. So I was just wondering if that was something that kind of like informed, at least even growing up, your view of Black Americans, and if you could speak to that.
So I think the biggest thing that Africans feel like, they just feel that like they do look down upon African Americans. I will say that. And I think it's because they think that they have no manners type of thing.
Mm,
Like they're believing in the stereotypes.
mm,
So it's not that they're like ratchet or anything like that, or they're not like the lesser of. They just don't feel like they have manners, right? Like the traditional like Africans are very like, we're gonna be very polite to our elders, we're gonna respect the cop. Like sometimes mom's like, why can't they just listen to the police? I'm like, Mama, they did, but like
that's
that's not how
so
the system here
interesting.
works.
Yeah, that is such a good
Yeah.
point. I know Arab communities, like, and so it's hard to figure out where it comes from specifically. Maybe it's just different places overseas have more of this like obedience culture, but the difference is also that like the cops aren't killing people dead in the street overseas for fun, like as
Yeah.
and so it is this hard conversation to have with a lot of immigrants around like, no, like if a cop pulls them over and doesn't explain anything and they get mad, like it's kind of their right to get mad, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's what it is. So it's just like it's sad to see because it's like we're all black and like when the police stop any immigrant, African, Caribbean, like Black, Latino, Latina, African American, you still look black to them. They don't care. They don't differentiate. The rest of America does not differentiate. If you go to the store in a predominantly white space or predominantly not POC area, like you still have to have these precautions where like, okay, like for me, if I go into a store and like I can't find something and I walk out empty-handed, I'm freaking out like in
Wow.
the back of my mind because I'm just like, do they think I stole something? Like
Wow.
what's going on? Like when you walk on the store, you're definitely not trying to look shady or anything. So it's definitely there's some struggles that we do face, but I feel like I also do recognize that I do come from some type of privilege. Um, Especially as like African, a lot of these people don't come here with the same traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can, and they know they're coming here with the intent of building a better life. And so they can they have this like, a lot of like immigrants, they just have this very good work ethic, where they come here with their goal in mind and they do it. They just go and they go for it. And it's like, it doesn't matter if they may not be the most successful person, but if their children can be, or their grandkids can be,
Mm-hmm.
this is what they're like, this is the dream that they're trying to go for. Uh, Whereas like African Americans, you kind of have all this history of slavery and the systematic racism and stuff like that coming back. You'll see like immigrants too. They'll come and they'll be business owners, they'll be doctors, engineers,
Right.
and now we're living in the suburbs, right? And so in the suburbs, you kind of have like, even though you might face a little bit of racism, you still kind of have a privilege over the people who are not.
Right.
And so that's something too I have to recognize as like a privilege. And because of that, I had a better education. I was able to like I had encouragement to do good. Like education is one of like the top things in my dad's mind. Like everything else can wait. Get your degree, do good in school, so you can have a good life for you.
Mm. Mm. So
And so there is that.
thinking about Dearborn and just kind of thinking most of our audience, as you know, is Arab. And I'm just wondering, like, based on the climate, and it's been that climate, but now there's more of an appetite to have these conversations, thankfully. What do you think is something you'd like to see change specifically as it relates to anti-Blackness in communities like Dearborn?
I think like I mean this is kind of broad, but like being more welcome and definitely checking like your biases. Because I remember like okay, if I go to a wedding, I'm getting stared down. I
Mm.
went to my friend's wedding. It was me, my sisters, and Khadija, and we were like the only Black people there, and we were of course stared down. And the I was friends with the bride, but the groom's mom was actually like the principal at the Arabic school I went to.
Mm.
So I hadn't seen her in a couple of years, but I was like, you know what? Let me like the nice thing to do is to salam alaiha, like go say hi to her and tell her like congrats, like mabruk on your son getting married. So I go up with my sister to say that, and she literally dismissed, like she was so dismissive. It was just like one of those stares where it was like, who the hell are you? Like, why are you even here? Type thing. And so my sister was like, like this the duties, like we went to like you were our Arabic school teacher. Her the way she changed, the way that she changed as soon as she recognized that we weren't like Black, basically, and that she kind of knew us, was like instant.
Mm.
And so there's definitely instances like that. Like I never had that problem with like the bride's mom. Like she hadn't seen me in years and she still recognized me, called my name, hugged me. And it was like there was definitely like a difference there where like when you feel welcome, it's like a little bit better, but definitely it's like everybody needs to check their balance, right? Like I'll go to the LSA gala with my friend because the Lebanese Student Association gala because she'll drag me, and I'll go to other things, but sometimes I feel uncomfortable going because you are gonna get some looks because you're literally the only Black person there.
Wow.
Um, and so I think it's people really need to start checking their biases, right? Like when you're in a store, are you staring at the Black person because you think they're gonna steal something? Um, are they allowed to sit at your table? Are you even making like a conscious effort in class to be nice to somebody? Are you making a conscious effort to stop saying Abid and like teaching other people about it?
Right.
Because I remember my cousin too was talking about how like he'd be chilling in his friend's basements and the mom comes down, would say hi to everybody, realize that there's a Black man in her basement and be shocked. And then his friend had to be like, oh no, but he's not Black. And then she
Wow.
started using that, oh, like I thought he was an Abid, like stuff that, like, and they laughed about it, thinking he would be okay with it. And he was definitely not.
And these
And
are
so,
these are Lebanese people, I'm assuming.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, call it out. Like, we need to hear it. And it's something we're getting criticism for because people don't want to believe it, but it's true. And unfortunately, we have to have people like you on here to air out these traumas and stories that you've experienced. But the same thing happened last week. Michael told a story about how, Joannette's right on Ford Road, Ford and Schaefer is like my childhood grocery store. And he told a story about his experience going in there as a 14 kid, being Black. All the Arab kids would walk in, say hi to the guy, I'd be fine. But when he walks in, he gets followed from the beginning of his experience to the end. And it's just, I think a lot of Arab in Dearborn need to hear that while this is a safe haven for, and by Arab, I mean non-Black Arab, that while this place could be a safe haven for us away from Islamophobic or racist America, for the Black Arab in this community, it's the opposite. And that we need to be the ones doing something about that. So, any stories that come to mind, like that you feel can help people see themselves in a mirror, either them or like their families or people they know are still engaging in these kinds of behaviors, I think, like the Pepsi story, like what the hell, And
And even
how
something,
does this kid know to joke like that in elementary school?
yeah. It's even like my dad, like when we were house hunting, like he would have like, the realtor knows he speaks Arabic and he's like, he'll have usually have Arab realtors, whatever. And he said that once he was like visiting a house and like the guy showing him and the neighbor comes out and he's like, don't bring this Abda here, you know? And it was just like my dad's like, bruh. Like my dad speaks to them back in Arabic and they always get shook.
Mm.
He's even had like an instance where at Crestwood, like he was in the like little roundabout trying to pick up my brother. Um, and I guess like he's parked and somebody got mad at him or something and literally started yelling at him, calling him Abid. And my dad literally got out the car and he almost fought the guy. And my dad was like, the guy was scared. Like
Wow.
when he realized, especially because my dad's like a big Black guy and he's speaking Arabic too, like, you messed up. He understood what you said. And sometimes it does take something like a little scare for them to understand. Especially like, which is sad. Like we don't need to be getting into fights, but it's definitely something people need to start being conscious about. Like you need to have the conversations and you need to get uncomfortable because we've been uncomfortable. Like we're always, like I said, it's like a cloud. Like you're never gonna stop thinking about like being conscious of being Black.
Right. Right. Have there been during like specifically in the past few weeks, now that people who don't normally talk about this stuff are starting to talk about it or think about it, have there been any moments that have surprised you, either good or bad, from like your friends or people in your circle and how they've chosen to react to, you know, George Floyd's murder and what it symbolizes about white supremacist America, because we just got to start calling stuff for what it is.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I have a really good circle of friends. Like when I pick my friends, I pick them good. So I've definitely been seeing my friends like actually actively talking out about it, going to the protest, talking to people about it. And I think that's what makes me happy. I know there's some people who like just post stuff. Like, and then I had friends too, like reach out to me about stuff like, oh, what can we do? Um, to learn about what more. Like I have friends reaching out to like see how I'm doing, which is really nice. But then I also feel like there is people who like they were just posting because for clout, you know? Like it's like I know you're not really about the movement. You're just posting it because you know we're all checking you now, type thing. Because you it like when people are saying like people do notice, I didn't realize it, but like yeah, it was true because like I'd be on Instagram and be like, huh, this person hasn't said anything, and they're posting about their daily life
Right.
when you're supposed to on a Tuesday, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Why is that a
So it's like a
problem?
mental note you take.
Obviously, like, I think it's a problem, but I would just love to hear from you. Like, why is it a problem for people to be posting and going about their lives? Like, I'm trying to think of common excuses that I can see people giving. Of like, I just didn't know what to say, or I think I've heard something through like my DMs of like, well, I'm having those conversations. You know, I just don't feel the need to post it on social media, or like I don't want to offend anyone. Like, why is that a cop out? And why is it important for people to be using their platforms to talk about this?
So I think especially if you have a big platform, people are listening and they're looking to see how you are and how you behave, right? Especially like on the Tuesday though, like there was people like on Blackout Tuesday that were posting things, and it was like even if you didn't post a black square or do any of that stuff, you weren't like so like out of respect, it was supposed to be like don't post about your life
Right.
type thing. Which I was like, oh, this is interesting. But there's the thing where like, okay, you might not be posting on social media because you think you're doing other stuff, but it's still important to have these conversations. Like you could always do like a small post. It's not gonna like kill you, you know? But as I guess people are also scared about, you know, backlash. But I feel like if you truly believe in the cause, like it's important to talk about it. If you have a big platform, it's very important to talk about it. It's important to start because now you're reaching people that we might not be able to reach. Everybody can reach a lot. Like if we're all doing it, we're reaching so many more people.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've seen that these protests, like these conversations, they're starting to help. Like
Mm-hmm.
changes are starting to actually like go forth. And especially in quarantine, like there's like more time to have these conversations and sit downs and just call a friend or do something, you know. So I think it really is important. Like I'm not even that active on social media, but I'm still gonna post, you know.
Right.
And I'm not gonna post like every single day just because I'm not on social media every day. But like it does make a difference because somebody might comment on your story or something and be like, hey, like what's this? Like what are you talking about? Like what like you know?
Right.
You
Uh-huh.
try to learn.
Yeah, no,
I think my
definitely.
sister was walking around the block actually like yesterday or something, and she was like there was these two white people I guess on the porch, neighbors, and she overheard them talking about how they realized that some of the stuff they were doing was like racist or complacent and stuff like that. And on her way back, she was like, they smiled and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" You know,
Yeah.
so little things they are making differences.
Yeah, no, I love that example. And I think I was talking to someone earlier and I was saying like the reality is some people are really not going to care. And I hate that reality, but it's true. Some people are so caught up in their privilege and are so comfortable and happy actually with the position that they play in white supremacy. And the reality is that right now we can really leverage the fact that although they might not care, they care about not looking racist. A lot of people do care about not looking racist. And even if we can leverage that to get people to be doing the right thing right now, regardless of their intentions, I think that's an opportunity that a lot of us can be, and us, I mean like people who are activists, who are allies, can be capitalizing on. Um, I wanted to talk about something that you and I discussed over the phone without going into too much detail, but I was asking you a question around feeling tokenized. And for people who are listening who may not know what that means that you are being asked to be the representative of everybody in your community. So this happens to Black people a lot, where they might be the only Black person in their class and their professor talks to like tokenizes them like, so what is it like how do you feel about what's going on? And that's very problematic. Number one, because it just puts a really uncomfortable spotlight on people without asking for them to just volunteer on their own. And number two, no one person can be the spokesperson for an entire community. There's a lot of diversity in every community. The Black community is no different. And I say that because during these times, and I know we've been seeing a lot of memes about it around like Black people right now are experiencing like a load of text messages of people just asking all these questions. And I'm sure you've experienced that. You spoke to feeling kind of tokenized at certain points where people want to ask your opinion or want you to talk about your story. And I asked you what things make you feel like that and what things actually make you feel like, I guess, willing or like encouraged or welcome to speak in a way that's not like shining that unfair spotlight on you. I know that wasn't like a super clear question, but you know what I'm asking you.
Yeah, so I think the one thing, like even Khadija talks about this, so like just feeling tokenized when you know, like when people come to ask you and you feel like they're only asking you because you're the only Black person they know, right? It's not because, and sometimes too, like you can kind of read, so you can see like, okay, what's the event that's happening, what's going on, and you can kind of read and say like, okay, but did they really want a Black person here, or are they doing it because like it looks better for the event?
Mm.
Are they asking me because they care about me and my opinion, or are they asking me just because I'm a Black, like the only Black person they know?
Mm.
And so it's those type of things that come in, right? So with you, like I'm always like, I'll talk on Dearborn Girl all day, whatever. Like I'll vouch for you. I know like seeing what you're doing on social media, right? So your track record is speaking for you. When there's like there's people like we know everybody. It's a small community. You know
Right.
everybody's track record basically, or you can see what they're doing. And so if there's people where you're like, but like maybe you know somebody you went to high school with them and they weren't the best then, or even in college now, like they're just pretending to be woke,
Mm.
and then they're coming to you for stuff, or they're just pretending to like organize stuff for themselves and this like fake activism stuff.
Mm.
You kind of don't want to be like, it's like you can do the like your protests or whatever without a Black person
Mm.
and speak on our injustices, right? And speak for justice for us. You know, it doesn't need to have a Black person there. But with somebody like you, like where I can see like, oh, maybe there's diversity, right? Like you're asking for Black Adams, but I saw that there's diversity on this panel. It wasn't just me.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that you're actually actively talking and having a conversation about this stuff. Like you're actually trying to educate people about this stuff. Dearborn Girls doing like a book club and stuff. Like they're actually actively doing stuff. That speaks for itself. Like people are gonna respect that
Mm.
and feel less tokenized in those situations.
So it's safe to say for people who are non-Black and wanting to do something about this, it's safe to say that while it's definitely important to have Black voices at the forefront and to be asking Black people what they need from this movement, and obviously, again, you're not speaking on behalf of all Black people right now, you're speaking on behalf of Mariam, but for you, like, you would want to see that person, because I guess I can see a scenario where, like you said, maybe you went to high school and they were shitty. Like maybe they were the person that called you like those names when you were on the playground. And let's say that person had a change of heart and actually realizes like, damn, like this is messed up and I want to do something about it. For you, it would be helpful to see a track record of them actually doing the work rather than their first, I guess, effort is like, Mariam, come, let me interview you or let me
Yeah.
ask you this or let me like post about you, and that seems to you like it's just not genuine. And you see a lot of that.
Sometimes I do, and I think even like Khadija Muhammad, like she has even bigger platform, and she sees that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But even like my sisters, like I think like she was just like, I'm not going to any of the Dearborn protests because I don't want to be the token Black person there. Like I want to see that they're fighting for us too, right? And so it's things like that.
Yeah, no, that's super real. I wanted to definitely ask you because when we had that conversation, it was really insightful for me. And I know that's something a lot of people are in that area where they want to be doing something, um, and they feel helpless and they think that the right approach is to text their like few Black friends and, ask them to help them be helpful. And I think I really just with this question wanted to shed light on how that's not helpful and that actually is making the wrong people do the work that we're supposed to be doing and the burden that we're supposed to be carrying. You mentioned earlier that you wish that the Arab in Dearborn would just be more welcoming. And aside from the examples that you gave around just our language and our treatment, and the gentleman who was in a basement and the mom, saying what she said, the weddings, what are ways that Like, what are other examples of things that you think we can and should be doing? And this is like to everyone, to me, to all of like people who are doing a lot, people who aren't doing anything. What are things that you think that as a whole the community could be doing better as it relates to being actively anti-racist?
I think the biggest part is education, because you can't really be anti-racist if you're not educated on what you're doing that's wrong, right? So I wish like if we had stuff in like our curriculum or something that could teach people like to be anti-racist, like that'd be ideal, but let's not get crazy. Um Things like that, or just having stuff like, you know, talking at home, having people have seminars, like, you know, even in the masjids, like if you're like in the mosque, if they're actually actively talking about anti-racism, if because even like in the mosque, some people don't feel comfortable if you don't look like the people who are mostly inhibiting that mosque, you're not gonna go, or you're gonna go and you're gonna feel really uncomfortable, and that's like pushing people away from religion, and even the churches and like any other places of worship. Like I feel like these are places where large people congregate and you can talk about it and you can call it out. But I think also just having conversations, right? Like, okay, maybe like you talk to your parents about it. Like maybe when you have a party in Zoom or something, like you guys are mentioning it. Maybe you invite your friends, like trying just to be more like welcoming, I guess, is like inviting Black people into your spaces, but not for the purpose of just like, oh, I want you here to like prove I'm not racist, you know? Like being genuine with these people, being more willing to learn and to share aspects of yourselves with each other. Because I think these are the bigger steps, right? Like there are the small steps that will lead to change.
Right.
Because you really do need to be educated. I think even like watching movies on Netflix, like 13, or reading books and like educating yourself is really, really, really the first big step.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So we're coming up on the end of it. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything else that you felt you wanted to say, or any call to action, specifically now, while people, unfortunately, I think, I mean, we can even take like COVID as an example. Things build momentum, people start acting, and then things die down. And my fear is that this dies down too early. I hope it won't. I don't really think it will, but I kind of have those moments. But now that the momentum is still here, if there are any calls to action or anything you wanted to add around, you know, what we can and should be doing in this community.
So I think like, okay, if you can't donate, there's like videos on YouTube you can watch that donate, right? You can educate somebody, maybe like call 5 of your friends and talk to them about it, you know, like have honest and earnest conversations, educate yourself on things that like people are talking about. Look up Black activists and role models in the community and learn from them, see what they're doing. You know, I mean, donations too are a big part of it. If you can protest, go and protest, you know? I do want to mention, like, stop fetishizing Black people. It's kind of weird. It's like the community will be like,
let's explain. Do you want me to explain it, or do you want to explain it? Just because I want to make sure. Sometimes I think the people who most need to hear it are the ones who might not like know that.
You can explain it if you want.
Okay.
Go ahead, girl.
So fetishizing is like this. It's like kind of like a lot of Arabs experience it differently, where people think we're so exotic and they're so like, oh my God, can you like say an Arabic word for me? That's kind of like fetishizing. Black people experience it to a whole different level around, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's this whole idea about like being obsessive over things that are Black culture, Black, you know, just different cultural things, but not being down for the cause at the same time. So you only like this one part of it, and it's kind of like for your entertainment purposes and not because you actually love and appreciate the culture. If you want to add anything to that, I don't know if I did it justice.
No, it's true, because it's Black culture. So in terms of Black bodies, right? Like they'll fetishize that and hypersexualize that. But you're not going to marry one of them, and you're not going to try to be out in public with these your boyfriend or girlfriend. The whole like the music culture, wanting to say the N-word, but then not showing up for like stuff like this and protesting to protect these people. Entertainers, everybody loves their Black entertainers, and it's like, okay, these people would speak up for you, like you should also speak up for them, type of thing.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I mentioned this in the last IGTV with Michael Williams last week, but do you know Hassan Minaj? It's worth mentioning again. He's the Muslim comedian. He talks in his recent clip, it's actually on Netflix now, He addresses his like whole 12 minutes to the Southeast Asian community, the Indian community, but it's also very relevant to really anyone non-Black, honestly. But he just talks about this idea that like, shut up, like you guys are the first ones to go and buy the new Jordans, but you won't like show up to a protest, or you won't like, you love Black culture, you love Black people on the screen, but if a Black man were in your living room trying to marry your daughter, it's like same exact example, like you would be the first one against it for no other reason than that person being Black. And that's kind of the idea of fetishizing and even appropriating culture. We see that a lot in Dearborn. A lot of Arabs want to be Black but don't want to be Black. And that's just,
Yep.
why is that problematic?
Mhm.
Why is that something people need to stop doing?
I think at first it's like offensive because now we're not seen as like people, we're seen as like objects, you
Mm-hmm.
know, objects for desire in any term, like different terms or types, whatever. And then I think when you stop seeing somebody as a human, you allow for all these injustices to happen to them, and you don't care if it does happen to them because it doesn't really affect you,
Do
and
you
you
hear
don't
these,
see that.
you hear these Dearborn Hawks? It's so crazy. You're literally and someone's just revving his engine for no reason. You gotta love Dearborn. Can you repeat like the
It's
last five words you said? Because I couldn't hear you.
I was saying, I even forgot, but I think I was saying like, if you don't see people as humans anymore, like it's so much easier to like allow for all these injustices to happen to them, um, and for you not to care because it doesn't affect you, and they're still giving you your entertainment, and you're still benefiting it from it in the end. And then it's things like that too, where like the Black Arabs in the community, right? So somebody like me, if I like when I get to marriage age, like who am I gonna marry in this community? Like I'm gonna have to leave.
Mm,
That's it. And
mm,
so it's things like that where you start to think about that too when you get older. It's like, oh, like all my friends, Muslim friends would be like, but you live in Dearborn, like there's so many like Muslim people. And I'm like, yeah, but like their parents wouldn't let me marry them. Like, what's that got to do with anything? And there's not a lot of Black Arabs here either, so it's like, oh,
right.
options have decreased.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's just being conscious of that type of stuff. You
One of
really,
my
really do have to start thinking about it.
one of my friends, she's Black, she was telling me, she actually DM'd me. This was, I want to say, like a few months ago, before Corona, probably in January, I want to say. She was in Chicago and she happened to run into this Arab guy. She didn't know him, but he was hitting on her. He like was trying to, get her number and everything. They get into conversation. She finds out he's from Dearborn. So the first thing she did, she knows my brother and I, and she's like, "Oh my God!" Like she was really excited. Like, "Do you know Rima? Do you know Ale?" And she told me his whole demeanor shifted where it's like, suddenly it's like, oh, she knows people I know. Maybe I shouldn't be hitting on this Black girl because I'm actually racist. And so she like DM me the next day and she's like, can you explain to me what happened? Like he took my number and we're gonna hang out, but I don't really know like how to feel. And I'm like, listen, love, like I don't know him and I'm not going to say that I know exactly what's going on, but it sounds like this is what happened. Like he started acting weird. I know a lot of Arab guys in Dearborn, just to protect my friend, like wouldn't, because of the nature of anti-blackness in our community, would probably be having not so great intentions. And it's definitely a conversation that is worth having because there's a lot of underground like dating that's happening where those Arabs who are dating Black people for so many reasons aren't bringing them home to their parents and maybe have no intention of doing that, and how harmful and hurtful that could be for sure.
Yeah, my cousin, like she'll still get hit up by like she lived with us like 6, 8 years ago, like her junior year she did here. And she was like, yeah, there's still guys from Dearborn who like slide into her like Facebook DMs and try to like get with her. And she's just like, I remember how you were in high school. Like you're definitely the type who would call me and Habib
Wow.
and stuff, and you're not gonna marry me. Like she's like, you're not gonna marry me or something. He'd be like, oh, but maybe if you're a Muslim, I would. She's like, I am Muslim. Like, so you have no excuse. Like you're just trying to waste my time, type thing. And it's actually interesting because that cousin told me. So she lives in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and she told me she never was called the N-word until she moved to America and
Specifically
did her.
here, like Dearborn.
So she was in Portland, Oregon first for like 2 years of high school, and then she came to us for 1 year and then went back to Canada. But when she was here, she learned what Abid was. Like she didn't know what that was either. Um, so it's definitely interesting where like different countries are definitely more like racist than others.
Yeah. Wow. It's just there's so many angles of it, and my wheels are just turning because it's like even something as stupid as like, can you guys know what this word means at this point? Like, can we just switch it out for the more accurate word? Like, this is not even a real word. Like, I don't know why you think that this is synonymous with black, because it's not. And now that you know it's not, and you know it's a really racist word, just switch it out. Like, I still find like there's days where I feel very hopeful, where it's like, wow, we're engaging in these conversations, we're learning, we're trying to do better. And then there's days where it's like we're still on like how to not be racist 101. Like, can we just stop using this word? And those are the days where I start feeling a little hopeless. Like, but we're not going to end on that note, because I do feel hopeful these days more than hopeless. But yeah, I mean, I just want to say thank you so much. I know that, and this is for everyone listening more than you really, like, this isn't easy for people to come and tell their stories about things that they've experienced that were extremely painful. And it's especially not easy when you have a whole group of people trying to tell people like Mariam that their stories weren't real, or, well, Dearborn's not really like that. And so we've been getting a lot of this where anytime people tell the truth about Dearborn, and the truth is that it's a beautiful, great place that's racist. Let's just be honest. It is. It has a lot of racist behavior. People feel the need to defend that instead of be part of changing that. And that's kind of just like a call to action from me personally. Like, Mariam shouldn't have to be on here telling these stories. And if you feel the need to defend Dearborn, and it's because you love this community, then just be part of like making sure stories like this just don't exist anymore. So that's kind of my call to action here. We are going to keep doing these. Mariam, I love you. I hope I see you soon. Is there
I love you.
Is there anything you want to say before we close out?
No, I think just like I really am hopeful and optimistic person, so I really do believe in everybody's ability to be good, and so just I'm trying to be hopeful that, we'll start seeing stuff like the term Abid like being erased from our vocabulary, people really starting to check their biases, being more welcoming of people who are Black in their spaces, and trying to understand like why they might feel this way and try to change that and educate other people.
Mm-hmm.
So, inshallah, fingers crossed, like everything's gonna go well, for the next generation at least.
Inshallah, definitely. It is definitely our obligation to make sure of that. So Mariam, this is basically to let you know what's going to happen as well as everyone else. We're going to take this video, save it, put it on our IGTV. At that point, you can feel free to, because my mom was calling me. She's probably going to keep calling. But we will keep sharing it. It'll also go on our podcast. So there's just different avenues for you to not just listen, but if you are listening today, please share this out. You, as someone who was willing to come on this live and listen, may not be the person that needs to hear this the most, because you're already willing to listen. You should send this to your family, send this to your friends, send this to the random dude in your class who thinks race isn't a thing. Just send this to everybody and, make them listen to it. This might be the one time that people who don't give a blank about these issues will actually care, because it's the cool and trendy thing to do, unfortunately. But if we can capitalize on that, we should capitalize on that, and we should start changing the people in our networks. Because like Mariam said, she may not have access to certain people that we have access to. I'm Lebanese. People who are in the Lebanese part of Dearborn are going to listen to me, because unfortunately that's how things work. We listen to people who come from our subcultures. So if you're listening and you have a network that you uniquely have access to, that is a gold mine that you're sitting on. Send these out, get these conversations going. But yes, and I'm reading Kebsit. We're going to have this whole thing recorded, love, so you can just go ahead and rewatch it as many times as you want. She's saying she wished she got on earlier. But yeah, I love you.
I love you.
I'm excited
Thank
for
everybody
this.
who watched.
Yeah, please don't thank me. This is the least we can do. And we'll definitely see each other soon, maybe over some bubble tea in better times.
Yes, invite Cece.
What is it?
Invite Cece with
Oh
us.
yeah, Cece and your sister apparently are besties. I didn't even know about this, but yeah, Cece literally for the past 3 days has been like, "Oh my God, I can't believe she's Mariam's sister. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that." I'm like, "Okay, Cece." Yeah. All right, love. Thank
They'll
you
be
so
taking
much.
care of her.
I'm sorry.
We're like, Cece's gonna be taking care of my sister in college. See, these are
I,
great
I
examples
think it'll be the other.
of
Well,
dating
yeah,
people.
right. Exactly. Thank you, love. And so good talking to you. We appreciate you always. And have a good night. Thank you, everyone, for being on. Keep tuning the club. Get engaged in any way that you can, because it's definitely an important conversation for us to be having. All right. Bye. So
Bye.
awkward. See you.